Welcome back to See-Thru, the transparent stories of victory, where we uncover the real, unfiltered journeys of faith, the moments that shift lives and draw people into true relationship with God. Today's guest is a man who wears many hats with purpose and integrity. Pastor Mark Bayman Jr. is the senior pastor of Healing Word Ministries, Church of God in Christ in Springfield, Massachusetts, where he faithfully serves alongside his wife, co-pastor Jennifer Bayman, and beyond the pulpit. He is a master electrician and the owner of Complete Electrical Contractors, LLC, demonstrating excellence both in ministry and in the marketplace. He is a devoted husband, a proud father of three, and a committed servant within the Church of God in Christ, where he serves in the National Adjutancy Corps, equipping and supporting leaders with discipline, order, and excellence. Currently, he serves in the first jurisdiction of Massachusetts, continuing a legacy of service and dedication. But today, we're going beyond the titles. We're going beyond the roles. We're here to hear his story and the journey, the challenges, and the defining moment that deepened his walk with God. Please help me to welcome my brother, Pastor Mark A. Baymon Jr. Thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, appreciate it.
So I'm just we're gonna open up. I know I'm gonna find out some stuff I didn't know today. When people see you today, as a pastor, as a businessman, as a family man, what do you think that they don't see about your journey?
I feel like they don't see the struggles, the past identity crisis, crises, um, uh, the fact that I am where I am today is a result of my wife, my father, my family pushing me to desire for more. Never been a type that thought I could be made of really anything. I didn't think I was cut out to be a boss, but I thank God for my father, for my wife. My wife really pushed me to and encouraged me to be more, and so she was the one that told me that I could do it, and even now I have her voice in the back of my head, even when she's not speaking to me verbally, saying that, you can do it. So
That's dope.
yeah.
Listen, we so how would you because I'm gonna ask you some early life stuff, but before we even get to that, I want you to describe who you were before your relationship with God became real to you.
Boy, I was, I was, I tell people at the church all the time, I feel the center of the worst kind. I wasn't, you know, um, I had a good time sinning, I had a good time living the life that I thought that I wanted. But I thank the Lord because, um, the Lord knew who I was, took me as I was, and brought me into and made me to be something better, someone better. I believe that prior to receiving the Lord, prior to the transformation, I had a good work ethic. There were I was kind hearted, but I believe that when I received the Lord and really um, uh, I really gave my life to him and really surrendered to him, I believe that the fullness, so to speak, thereof really came about.
So you saw the difference, probably were able to see the difference between being good and being in God.
Yeah.
Like, so it's a lot of times people will say, I've heard so many people say, well, all I feel like all I have to do is be a good person, and you know what I mean, like, and I'll make it, I'll make it to heaven. I think that God will be satisfied, and it's not what the Bible says. And I hate, like, to just seem like, oh, I want to burst your bubble. But I think that it's important for us to know. And I'm glad you said that, like, that we may be kind-hearted, we may be good people, but the Lord is calling for us to be more than just that. And so
Yeah.
um with that, um what was your early exposure? Uh, I gotta ask, I don't know. What what was your what was your early exposure to faith growing up?
Um, we grew up in the church. I remember Steve Harvey talked about how, he had told his parents that he'd rather go to hell because going to church is too much work. And um, I never said that to my parents, but
Okay.
I at times felt that way, because when you grow up and you go on to church for everything, choir rehearsal, praise and worship rehearsal, prayer, Bible study, Sunday service, Sunday night service, and then at one point we had two services on a Sunday morning, and it had to be at both.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and so you get to the point where it's like, oh, if this is what it is, I don't want to do it.
Mm,
But I thank the Lord because the Bible is true. When you train up a child in the way that it should go, when it's old, it won't depart. And although I had other plans, you know, the plans that I had before became null and void when I gave my life to the Lord. And to piggyback off of what you were saying in the question, and your answer to my, in your rebuttal previously, I think that we people will say that all I have to do is be good, and I believe that's all right. I believe that you think that way until you have a reason to think otherwise. You
mhm.
know,
That's good.
until you see for yourself. Sometimes it's going to take God really having to show you. I had situations happen where God had to show me.
Mm,
You know, that this isn't just something that we do on Sunday. This isn't just something that we do in church. This is something that we have to continuously live out through during the week, at work, at home, when we're out in public. This is the life, you know. Forgive my using of the Mandalorian, but this is the way,
yeah.
you know. This is the way. So
This is a
yeah.
Star Wars friendly show. So yes, sir. This is the way, man. I'm with it. I love that. Uh, was there uh, was there a time where you felt like, and I'm asking this because um, so many people that come on have grown up in church. And
hmm
so that's something that a lot of us have in common. But even um, you know, um, but because that's the case, was there a time when you felt like um where your faith felt more like tradition than relationship?
Definitely. Um, I can definitely say, not necessarily consistently, but at times, it just felt like I'm just going through the motions. Like I'm just here because I have obligation. At times you forget to pray or just don't even feel like it. Times when I wasn't reading my word. Times when I wasn't really seeking to have a relationship. I was just coming to church.
Mm,
And and those times it's just like you start to feel like what is this really for? Like who is this really for? Like is this really leading me to heaven? You know, but I really, um, when I come back to myself, I really I see, yeah, this is literally the way. This is the way to get to heaven. I believe there's not a problem. Hmm. I talked about how we grew up and we went to church pretty much, it seemed like every day to me. Maybe my parents will
yeah.
beg to differ. Maybe mom and dad will beg to differ. But,
Nah,
we went to
every day.
church almost what seemed to be every night. But, I don't feel like there's a problem if you attend a church where you only go to church on Sunday. You have Bible study once during the week, or you have a couple services during the week as opposed to every night. But I believe that when you're at your church, where you pay your tithes at, in that where you call your pastor, or you call your pastor dad. I believe that, you should be subject to that leader,
Yeah.
be subject to your church, because, if, my, dad used to say this all the time. He said, if the Lord were to come back on a Wednesday night or a Thursday night where I have a Bible study, there's a whole lot of folk that wouldn't be making it because they refuse to be subject to their man of God. They refuse to be subject to the church that they call themselves a member of.
Yeah. I'm like that. So Jesus, man, that's that's so true. Oh, like God, man, he'd be saying that now sometimes. So
Mm-hmm.
like, God forbid he come back on a Bible study night. It's like,
Yep.
um, Lord, so can you remember like the first moment that you became aware, and this probably happened as a kid because I know like especially once mom and dad started our church, we were had to be a part of everything. We were always, even the altar call, we
Mm-hmm.
was the ones being prayed for, we was ushering, we was we was the choir, all that stuff. But so early on, like what was the first moment that you became aware that God was personally calling you?
First time that I became aware. Um, Actually, it really wasn't until I was an adult. I had previously received the Holy Ghost, and so, I guess the preface is I've never been the one to do things just because everybody else is doing it. You grew up with me, you and Chris would be off doing something else. I would be doing my own thing.
Yeah.
So I've never been the one to do things just because everybody else does them. However, um, you know, when I heard the Lord, I was mowing the lawn when I heard the Lord call me into the ministry, when I heard the Lord call me to more. And I was mowing the lawn at mom and dad's house, and I went right into the house and I told dad, you know, and so, I had seen glimpses, I remember different times, the Lord using me, to speak to the church. Times when, I was just speaking in tongues, and, during, I think might have been during praise and worship one particular time that I can remember. And, the Lord was speaking through me to the church,
Mm,
and I believe that, that may have been the first time that, first or second time, that I knew, that the Lord had greater for me, not just to be a brother or a deacon, but to be more.
mm,
You know, Different ones will come to town and they'll say, "Oh, he gonna preach," but when you're in your mind and you're like, you know what, not me, nope, no,
yeah.
because when this is over, I turn 18, I'm not going to church. But when I knew, when I knew that the Lord had called me, when I knew that that there was more for me, I decided to um, make sure that I was going to do what the Lord wanted me to do. I
Mm,
wasn't gonna, keep that same mind. It's not me. No, no, Lord, it is me.
mm.
Well, what do you want me to do? And just kind of try to build and really try to start to move in that direction.
Right. So is that the point in time? Because I know that there was a point at which you have become a deacon.
Hmm.
It was like around, is this around that same time?
Um, nope. This is after that.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
This is after that. Um, I had been a deacon. You know, I wasn't minister. I was just a deacon at the time.
Mm,
Um, but that's when I know that I heard the Lord. Um,
mm,
you know, so so yeah.
okay. I so that being said, well, I know y'all ain't gonna hear that, but it's a loud car driving by this. It's springtime. It's getting warm. But but, but that being said, so so every story has a turning point. This is pretty much the purpose of the show, to to be able to have leaders express like their turning points with transparency, just to allow people to be able to see that you are you know what I mean, like to not look at leaders so much as holy rollers,
Hmm.
as much as people who have just made the decision to submit their lives to the Lord.
Yeah.
But we all come to like a turning point. So that's what I want to hear about right now. A lot of, and even to what you said, like, it's like, yo, I was, I heard the Lord for the first time. I was doing this at this point, but there, even in being saved, right?
Hmm.
We all come to a point where we're like, okay, now I'm about to get serious for real. This is the point at which I turn and make this relationship with the Lord. Like, I'm going deeper and I'm not going to be afraid. What was that turning point for you?
Um, so my turning point was, after I had, um, received the Holy Ghost and, I had backslid. I went back into the world, still coming to church, um, still singing in the choir on the praise and worship team, but had gone back to the life I had lived previously. And my testimony is that I was driving down the street and a man pulled up beside me at a red light I had never seen before. Never seen him before, never seen him again after.
Mm,
And it was him and another guy. And he told me that the Spirit of the Lord says it's time for me to get it right because death is waiting around the corner.
mm,
And, at that time I was smoking cigarettes, and that was the last day that I ever smoked a cigarette. I didn't need a patch like I'd used previously.
mhm.
I didn't go make a motion and pour cigarettes down the into the sewer. I didn't, it wasn't no grand gesture.
Yeah.
But the fact that God saw me and gave me warning, and he loved me enough to not allow me to die in the state that I was in. That ultimate act of love, so to speak. It really changed my mind about not just who I was, but also who I was in God. Really, I realized like, look, I can't play with my life anymore. It's either I'm gonna live saved, live for God, or I'm not. And that was August the 15th of 2004.
Wow.
I'll never forget the day. August 15th, 2004. And I met my wife 1 week later at your house. you know, I um um I realized that, you know, I could not continue the path that I was on because unbeknownst to me up to that point, it was literally leading to a path of destruction.
Mm,
You know, we feel like we have just time. We feel like we're going to live forever. We're going to live to be old. But, when God has purpose for your life and you're not fulfilling your purpose, like, what need does he have for you to be alive?
mm. Like, so just for context, because this is, you said, 2004. This is some 22 years ago.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're still young, but you're like really, really young. And so, I mean, so just for everyone to be able to see, um, for where you are right now, you wouldn't have been there
Nope.
had you decided to go in the opposite direction. I
That's the
think,
truth.
you should I want you to tell people, um, because I heard you say on the man when he pulled up that he said that death is waiting for you around the corner. If you don't get it right, like what all did that look like for you? You said you were smoking, like, but I want for you to be able to say how how much, what was the habit like, and then like the way that God did it, because I think that it was a really miraculous type of thing.
Yeah.
You brought up the patches and stuff, and like you did all of the things to try to wean yourself off and try to, but like what did that look like?
So at the time, I was smoking a pack and a half, about a pack to a pack and a half a day. And a friend of mine, his father owned Orchard Variety Store. So I would go into the store and he would just give me the cigarettes off the shelf. I didn't have to pay for them. So that's number one, And so at the time, I had I just opened a new pack of cigarettes.
Mm.
And I had just lit up said cigarette. It was fresh, you know. And when that brother pulled up beside me, I had my window down because I was smoking, had Jay-Z blasting, it was the Black Album.
Okay.
Uh, I had it blasting, and back in the day I had the CD visor, or the CD library on my visor,
Oh yeah, yeah.
So CDs, we go back.
Y'all know nothing about that.
And so when he pulled up beside me, you know, I didn't think anything of it, but I remember, literally remember, it was a black guy, bald head, and then the other dude was he was heavy set. I could see that. And then the other guy was this I think he might have been Puerto Rican, a Spanish guy
Mhm.
that was in the passenger seat. And you know, when he opened up his mouth, it was like I was shocked, almost like stunned, excuse me, cigarette still in my hand, but I'm shocked that a stranger is talking to me like this,
Mm.
you know, and outside of the church, this is the first time I've ever seen anything like that, and so I knew it had to be from God. Um, when he was done talking, he said, the Spirit of the Lord says it's time for you to get it right because death is waiting for you around the corner. And the last thing he said to me was, "You're going to be a great man of God one day."
Mm.
And
Wow.
the brother that was in the passenger seat gave me the business card for a church, but that was the longest red light I'd ever seen in my life. It's never in the particular light where it is. It's on the corner of Montgomery and Granby Road in Chicopee,
Okay. Okay.
right where the CVS and the Walgreens are, and there's a Cumberland
Okay.
Farms. That light. That was the longest light. He had time to tell me all of that, then get out the car and give me this, and then I'm sitting there just kind of looking straight for a little bit. Then the light turns green. At the time, I was on my way to Brother Headley's house,
Mm.
and by the time I got to his street, I had thrown the cigarettes out the window. Call me a litter bug. All right, I threw the cigarette that cigarette that I had in my hand had already gone out the window. I threw the pack of cigarettes that I had out the window.
Mm.
Later on in the day, I threw all my secular CDs, albums out, and um, say what you want. I didn't really fully understand it till later on why it was necessary for me to throw those out.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is I have an addictive nature.
Mm.
And so because I'm easily addicted to stuff, I had to push some of that stuff out, in order to be able to really grasp a holy lifestyle. To me, that was the only way I was going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
My pastor told me it ain't right to listen to that stuff. Now I'm just now giving my life back to the Lord, so I can't listen to that stuff,
Yeah.
because it's a sin now. you know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Man, that's Jesus. Like, so all of that, you were able to basically kick the habit. So it was no more smoking, just no more smoking anything.
Yep.
No more alcohol, none of that. Like it's it's amazing to be able to know what what a made up mind will be able to do for you. And what I mean by that is because you decided that this is what you're going to do, on the Lord was able to deliver you, just like, you're able to be made whole.
Yeah.
And yeah, you know what I mean? Like, and I it's such an awesome thing because, like I said, like I was there to be able to see it's something that you were struggling with. I was there, what I mean, getting the patches from the Walgreens.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and so then for it to just be like, nope, I told God I'm not gonna do it. And it's like, bam.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
it's just, and that's not to say that it'll happen like that for everybody. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that it was awesome to be able to see it happen for you. There's actually something that I go back and I tell, the some of the guys, my group at the prison,
Hmm.
about, like the way that God will work, if you allow him to do it. But it has
Yeah.
to be, you know what I mean? Like, we did just an interview with Trey, that and was saying like the same thing. It's about choosing God, right? That made up mind
Yeah.
to really allow him to do what he wants to do. We think about stuff as like, it's too hard to do that.
Hmm.
It's like we never asked you to do it on your own.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
like, but what were um that was a battle. And so you really surrendered to the Lord. But like during your walk, have there ever been like internal battles that you had that may have kept you from surrendering fully?
Um, I feel I do feel like there have been different times. Um, Especially, when you have ambition,
Hmm.
you have desires that, of success that will at times kind of put um your your yes on the back burner, you know. So whereas at that time, God got a an unapologetic yes from me. Like, you literally got a 100% yes, but the yes kind of at times dwindles and, just put someone on a back burner. Um, you have dreams of becoming rich, dreams
Hmm.
of becoming stable financially and becoming reaching different goals, on your job, or have a different other different material goals that you have. And so, some of those things at times, because we live in a materialistic society,
Hmm.
um, will allow our godly relationship to go on the back burner, and that's just reality. And I'm not exempting that from that because I'm a pastor. I'm not exempt from that, because of my title, you know. Um, yeah, I got to deal with it too. But because I have a title, my my struggles are on full display, you know.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, I think even going back to when I was um, uh, just a minister at my father's church, it was excuse me, at our father's church, you know, I I didn't fully understand. It's like we say we know that the pastor has different things that the pastor's dealing with, but until I got to see it for myself,
Hmm.
it didn't really fully resonate with me, and realistically, that's the kind of person that I am. That's the kind of learner that I am. I'm not very um, I can't fully understand it until I can touch it for myself, until I can,
Yeah.
feel it for myself. That's when, I really learn, how something works.
Yeah.
And so, as I've been pastoring now these 5 years, like I've learned that, different times in my life, different struggles, it really, it at times makes me question,
Mm.
makes me question, like, Lord, you said that you had me. Like, why are we here again? Like, why does it seem like you left me out here by myself?
Mm.
You know? Um, but like, I thank God for my wife, and I know she thanks God for me at times because, sometimes we ask these questions and we vent and we, say we don't want to do it no more. But when it's all said and done, you know, the both of us can't feel that way,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
We need somebody to speak reason and speak life back into us, and so I thank God because, I believe everybody should have somebody. If that's not your spouse or your significant other, it ought to be your pastor, it ought to be, another brother from the church, another sister from the church, somebody that can speak that life back into you. But yeah, I definitely have those times in my life. Still, even to this day. But you know, you just got to make sure you bring it back into perspective.
Yeah. And sometimes, I mean, we have those times with the Lord. We're like, yo, I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like, yo,
Yes.
this don't, this don't look like nothing you said.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, I think it's even you saying, I feel like that is so important to be able to acknowledge that, but also to be able to know that we can say that to the Lord because
Yeah.
he wants to hear that from us.
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean? Like we don't, I think sometimes, even, in prayer, like, people say, oh, you got to pray. Our idea, and especially like for those who are not in leadership, right? You feel like, yo, like he already know how I'm feeling. Like
Hmm.
I don't have to, but the Bible says to cast all your cares upon him because he cares for you.
Yeah.
And it's like, even if he knows, he still wants to hear it from you, right?
Yeah.
I used to do, like the same thing with dad. I would say, um, I got this going on in my life. I got that going on. I've explained it to mom. So I know that she's gonna tell him, he's gonna know by association because she's gonna give him the rundown because
Hmm.
she don't hide nothing from him, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, but it's like because I didn't tell him, he's still waiting for me to say it to him to be able to have the conversation that I want to have.
Yeah.
But I have to say it to him in order to be able to, because otherwise it's like, well, like I know this is going on. So if it's not like dire or emergent, like, you know what I'm saying? I feel like you got it because
Yeah.
you haven't said nothing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
and so like, the same with the Lord. It's like we have to go to him with those things. It's not something like I'm not going to get on social media and begin questioning God publicly, but
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to tell people that I've done it. You know what I'm saying? Like that
Yeah.
I have, saying, Lord, I don't know what's happening, or you know what I'm saying, I maybe I can't say nothing and it's just tears and I'm just, you know what I'm saying, or I'm like, yo, and I'm feeling like maybe I'm discouraged or whatever. And it's important to know that we can have, that full relationship with the Lord where we don't have to hide anything from, not that we could hide if we wanted to, but like just to be able to say that, like, yo,
Yeah.
hey, I need some confidence.
Yeah.
I need some strength. And you know what I mean? And I need some mental wherewithal because I don't believe that you're a liar. But this, what I'm looking at, it don't look like what you said you was gonna do.
That's right.
And then you said that you was gonna provide.
Hmm.
I'm broke.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like you said, hey, and not that I can't figure out ways to be able to be able to get this money, but you said to not do these things for
Hmm.
me to, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so now we got to have this conversation because I don't even expect for the Lord to just, to just immediately turn it around. but I do need you to help me to get my feelings in perspective so that they don't rule my decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
So, um, but if that being said, do you feel like um there has been um ways that you have surrendered to the Lord that have cost you?
Yeah. You know, I'll say it like this, like, um, you know, I at times, I'll talk to my wife, I have my own, electrical company, and so um the church that I pastor, we're small at the moment. And so at times I'll just be like, man, if I didn't open this church, it would be a whole lot easier. We would be in a different place and things of that nature.
Mm,
But the reality is, like, why else would I open a church in the middle of the pandemic when nobody was going to church?
mhm,
You should only do that if you heard the Lord, and so,
that's right.
I know that it was the Lord that told me to open the church, but at the same time, um it sometimes it feels like, why, if I hadn't have done this, I might have been better off. Um and the reality is, you know, you think about the money aspect of it, but the reality is, you know, it's so much bigger than money,
Mm,
because if I wasn't spending it at the church, I'd spend it somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? But you know, and I also look at where we are in the new building that we're in. God has provided literally every month.
mm,
You know, our bills getting paid as well as the church bills getting paid. So I mean, it's not easy by any stretch of the imagination. It is hard. Um, but you know the fact that I want to see lives changed, you know, the fact that the fact of the matter is that the Lord has given me visions of what He's going to do because we moved there. You
yeah.
know, I don't know if you remember. I don't know if it was either Star Wars or it was Hot Shots. They said, now the circle is complete.
Both.
Yeah. Our first Sunday in the church, the Lord gave me this vision. We were worshiping, and the Lord gave me this vision, and, I could see a map of Springfield, and I saw lights everywhere.
Mm,
But in that neighborhood, the light was out. And then I saw the Lord screw the light bulb in.
mm,
The Lord said, now it's complete because where we're supposed to be, you
mm,
know? And so, although, at times, yes, I feel like um my yes is somewhat to my natural detriment. I believe that spiritually, um my yes has caused me to be exactly where I'm supposed to be, you
yeah.
know.
That's some good perspective to be able to have. And of course, it's like, I think we all think about those things. All particularly, I think about, like, all of the if I had saved some of the money that I previously had, what
Hmm.
I mean? Like, but when you're also supporting the church, you're it's you're essentially running two separate businesses
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
top of having a family and all of
Yeah.
this and your own, you know what I mean? Like, and so um it's a added degree of difficulty, and that's probably an understatement. But just knowing what the Lord wants you to do, and it's like, even when it feels like it may be um to your detriment. One thing, like, the perspective that I began to have is that sometimes um we'll be ready to give up, or we'll, you know what I'm saying, or we're saying, well, if it was the Lord, maybe it wouldn't be this hard. It
Yeah.
wouldn't be this tough. But just being able to look at it from the standpoint that sometimes we're it's not that the Lord has not is not with us in this season. It's just that we're at the difficult part of the journey
Yes.
that we're on.
Yeah.
And just because we're at the difficult part, it's not time for us to give up. This is the point at which we have to lean in closer and hold on even tighter.
Yeah.
um because some people do, they're like, oh God, I've had it. When we were in elders classes, and we were and Pastor Clark was saying, he had given us that sheet and all this statistics about how many pastors leave their pulpit from Sundays and never return.
Yeah.
How many guys just go and slide completely away from the Lord. How many people commit suicide because they just, what I mean, like,
Yeah.
because they're not able, and they're trying to handle it themselves when we were never called to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like, people say uh that the Lord will not put more on you than you can bear, and the Bible never says that. It
Mm-hmm.
literally does not. What it does say is for us to cast all of our cares on him, meaning that life gets heavy. The things that we have to do, even in our callings, they get heavy, but he will carry the heavy part of that burden if we allow him to.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of times we feel, because because of the ministry is our responsibility, we want to take on all of the weight. And it's not,
Mm-hmm.
we were not designed to do it. But
Yeah.
if we decide that we want to, the Lord is like, well, I'd help you, but you know, but you just, you're kind of doing your thing.
Yeah.
So even in that, to be able to have, like, the resolve, like, listen, I know that the Lord is with me. And bro, the reality is, how much time we got on earth? So you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
we get a good 70, 80, 90 years. It's a lot when we're living it, but in comparison to forever, if you were to say, I got to deal with this struggle, and I'm going to deal with that until my 80s, and then I pass. If I'm going to heaven and you're talking about the rest of eternity,
Mm-hmm.
my perspective is that this is just a blip.
That's right. That's right.
Like, yo,
Yep.
it is what it is. Like, I don't like it right now, but I'm gonna love it when I reach the other side.
Yeah. Yep.
Because if the alternative is gasoline draws and fire, nope. so, oh, so did becoming a pastor feel like a natural progression, or like, you know what I mean, like, do you feel like it came naturally, or was it like kind of his own beast with with, like, just different things you couldn't have expected?
Definitely its own beast. Where previously, just as an elder minister, I don't know if you remember in our elders classes, um, Pastor Clark said our job as an elder is to not have our own vision, but carry on the vision of the pastor.
Mhm.
But as a pastor, you have to have your own vision. And I think that um it's definitely I talked about I talk about a lot how I thought it was just going to be easy, because that makes it look easy. He just has a way about him.
Yeah.
It just looks like nothing phases him,
Yeah.
you know. But once the roles shift, and you begin to talk to him, it's just like, man, he didn't tell me none of this, And so, just the administrative side, I thought that the hard part was going to be preaching every Sunday.
Mm.
Um, but actually, that's the easy part. That's literally the easiest part of being a pastor. It's everything else. Having the vision, um, writing out said vision. When something breaks at the church, the church don't got the money, so that means you got to take care of it. If people acting crazy, you got to deal with it. Um, if if there's something that comes up that's an emergency, it's on you. Um, but it's also it being definitely it's not all bad. There's also good things. It definitely warms my heart to see, my children and my wife. They are our only faithful members right now. But also, it really warms my heart to see that the things that I've been preaching about are changing the lives of my kids.
Mm.
You know, they said, and I hope they don't be mad at me for saying this, but they said, they wish they were back in deliverance because they didn't have to do as much, because there were so many more adults
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
were able to do.
Yeah.
And so like the kids didn't have to do as much. But you and I know when our father stopped, left Holy Trinity and started his own church, we had to do a whole lot of everything.
Everything.
Yeah, we were the ushers, we were the choir members, we were, we did everything. And so, I think that the fact that now it's not something that we are making them do, but they're deciding to do it themselves. I have been making altar calls, every Sunday. You want to be saved, but then the Lord had placed on my heart to do a Bible study series on discipleship.
Mm.
Because a lot of times we feel like we're all right. Oh, I gave my life to the Lord that time. We don't look at the fact that, I've been lying like, every chance I got. Parents asked me my room clean. Oh yeah. So we don't think they're gonna go in there, different things, watching things you had no business watching and doing things you had no business doing. But now transitioning to saying, I want to be saved, that definitely, that is the highlight, seeing lives change, before my eyes. It just, um, that's part of the different beasts. Before, we were happy to see souls being saved. Sometimes be like, man, why in the world this many people at the altar? Don't they know what time it is? That was before.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now as the pastor, your heart changes, and I'm sure, being at the prison, it's a different mindset because you are a pastor, at the prison. And so, it's a different mindset. You
Very
want to see lives change. Before you had that role, I'm sure, you might have been looking at your clock, come altar call time, but it's literally something different. I think that, on a minuscule level, it did come naturally, but, there was a huge learning curve to it.
Yeah. I mean, one thing about you is that you have always loved people.
Yeah.
And so, and people love you. So, you know what I mean? Like, it was easy, from the outside looking in, it's easy to be able to see you in that role because, you know what I mean? Because you naturally, I know that you just want to see people do well.
Yeah.
But even, and and what you were saying about the kids wanting to be saved, and we did have to do all of that stuff. We was like, yeah,
Yep.
we usher in, and then not only just the jobs in the church, like the ushering, being the only ones in Sunday school,
Mm-hmm.
being, you know what I mean, like doing the praise and worship, being the choir. Like, why are y'all calling us different things? It's the
Yeah.
same folks. Like, but you know what I mean. But the crazy thing is, like that transition from when they started, when mom and dad started this church, it was like, um, it was a change for us and in us
Mm-hmm.
because now we're not able to hide.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because like there's no
Yes.
adults, like, where there's a couple adults, but it's like because y'all, you know what I mean? Like, nah. So
Yeah.
now when you come to the altar, we're focusing on you.
Mm-hmm.
When we're, you know what I'm saying? Like, yo, when we're praying, we're focused on it. When Dad was preaching, he was like, he was preaching to us. And I think that the awesome thing about you preaching and teaching and your kids getting, you know what I mean, like them changing their minds about whether or not they want to be saved,
Yeah.
wanting to, you know what I'm saying, like, wanting to give their life to the Lord, where, you know what I'm saying, like, whatever that looks like for them, you know, like really
Mm-hmm.
surrendering to the Lord is is awesome. But it's like, because because they're in the congregation,
Yeah.
and because right now the congregation is small, is just an example of the Lord's word not returning to him void, because the
Wow.
word that you put in them, the
Yeah.
things that you're preaching, it's actually hitting good ground. And now, you know what I'm saying, like, so
Yeah.
now these years later, like, we're beginning to see like the fruits of that labor. So you know what I'm saying, like, so
Yeah.
it's like, Jesus, it couldn't have been all in vain, because I'm looking at it.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I think that that's awesome, and that's something that speaks to you and co-pastor Jennifer's dedication, is that, you know what I'm saying, like, even in ways that you can't see, you know what I mean, like, you're still effective.
Yeah.
And we don't know right now the cause that your effectiveness is going to have on your church, because it's had it on them.
Yeah.
There's so many pastors who have been so focused on the members that their kids kind of slip through the cracks.
Yeah.
We've seen it.
Yep.
And so, you know what I mean? Like, but to know that, you know what I mean? Like, no, they're going to have their own experiences. They're going
Mm-hmm.
to, but to know that you're not going to be in that number, because the word has hit them in such a way, they can never go outside and be like, it with no, and pretend like they don't have no information on God, or know that, oh, I don't know that this is God tugging at my heart, or I don't know that
Yeah.
wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you're going to be convicted, because that thing on the inside of you that was planted so many years ago is there, and it is not going to allow you to go but so far,
Yeah.
because God is going, what the old folks say, put his hooks in you.
Yeah.
You go just start reeling you in. You thought you got far, but I'm gonna start bringing you back.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so maybe you're gonna sin, but you ain't gonna be comfortable. So I think that that's something that's really, that's really awesome, and where you may even thought, you know what I'm saying, we see guys, in the city, and there's so many people doing things where you might have been like, like, well, they're, like, where they're ahead. There's, you know what I'm saying, like,
Mm-hmm.
on the Lord is just doing so much more than we think about all the
Yeah.
time. You know what I'm saying? Um so how do you that it's a good segue. How do you balance being a pastor and a business owner and a husband and a father? There's so many slashes there, right? You know what I mean? Like, how do you how do you balance being all of those things?
Well, I'm still learning. I'm still trying to um figure out the ratio. And it is really mostly because I have a new business, and for the most part it's just me. Um a lot of my time goes toward the business, and so, it's like I work up until Bible study time on Sundays. I mean, excuse me, on Wednesdays.
Mhm.
And then, Saturday, I'm putting my message together for Sunday, finishing up Sunday morning. And, then 2 o'clock comes for service, you know, around 2:45, preach the message. And I leave the church and I'm worried about work for the next day while spending time with my family.
Mhm.
But, I know my wife probably at times will say, you know, I'm in the room, but I'm not in the room. And so, you know, and I'll sidebar and I'll say this: we don't always know what our spouses are thinking, and so, I remember I had told my wife, tell me what's on your mind, if something bothers you, tell me. I might be upset about it, but I'm going to change because I'm a thinker. Once you tell me something, you tell me you don't like something, I'm going to think about it and I'm going to figure out how I can change. And so, you know, she tells me, she'll tell me something that is bothering her. So, she'll say, sometimes, well, we're in the room, but you're not really here. You're scrolling on Instagram or scrolling on Facebook or playing a game or, or you're thinking about work. And so more recently, because I know I spend so much time working, I have really tried to make sure that when we're together, I'm not playing a whole bunch of games or I'm not, doing a whole bunch of scrolling Instagram,
That you're present.
that I'm present,
Yeah.
because, when it ends up being that you're spending more time working or you're spending more time, um, excuse me, pastoring, you're spending, all of this time elsewhere and you don't have time with your family, or you're absent minded when you're with your family, it's going to start to seem like you don't want to be apart,
Mm,
and so,
that's good.
I love my wife and I love my family. And so, it's my goal to make sure that I'm I'm present when I'm present, you know, that my mind is there even when my body's there. I don't know if you remember that movie Click.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh man.
he was on autopilot because it got used to fast forwarding through the parts of his life that he didn't want to be in.
Yeah.
And so all of those years he missed because he was on autopilot in the room, but not really in the room.
Yeah.
And so, I want to make sure that that's not me.
Yeah.
You know,
It's crazy you even brought up that movie. That actually changed the way when I saw it when it came out.
yep,
That changed the way that I looked at like family stuff and
yeah,
and like my kids growing up and all of this. Oh, because it really was something I took for granted.
yeah,
That like that. I think I actually I watched it. Well, the first time I saw it, it was I was by myself, so I let a couple tears drop.
yeah.
We like no, real talk.
but
But but yeah, man, that is so important to be to be present. And I mean, again, trying to balance all of that, it can't be easy.
no,
But having the mind that you have, what I mean, like it's good to be able to have because because that you're striving forward to be better.
yeah,
That what I'm saying. Who knows what that looks like? Because every day is different.
yep,
You know what I mean? Like, so today it could be up. You know what I mean? Like tomorrow, maybe the best that you can do is just put my phone down.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yep.
so um, that's really good, man. That's really good. Like, what I wanted to ask you, what is your journey taught you about? This is a good question in conjunction with that other one. What is your journey taught you about leading at home versus leading at church?
Um, I guess my leadership at home and my leadership at church are two completely different things. Like at the church, I'm not super playful. At home, I am very playful. Like get under my kids' skin, playful. Like push every last one of their buttons. And be laughing to the point where it's like, and then they get upset, and I'm like, hey, remember, I'm your daddy now. Get mad at them because they don't want to play no more. But and I think that they don't know how to distinguish between the two all the time.
Mm,
I had my son was working with me this past week, and I had a conversation with him. You know, because he's our church drummer. And I asked him, I said, like, I said, hey, I just wanted to have a conversation with you. Do you feel like you do enough as it pertains to the church? Like, because my question, like, look, you're a member of the church, but you're also a drummer. Do you feel like um you playing the drums is enough? And it got him to thinking, Like, I know that he like, yeah, I know that, I play the drums, and he plays the drums for another service before our service also. And so my other kids pick up the slack. They pretty much just do whatever we ask, and they don't have an attitude about it for the most part, most of the time. And you know, it just got them to thinking, but I told them at the end of it, because it was a very good conversation, and I said, look, I just wanted to have a conversation with you rather than yell at you or be upset because of what I perceive. Because at the end of the day, I didn't think his mind was where it was. You know, I felt like he thought, he just did enough, and he should be able to sit down when he get done playing the drums. But that's not where his mind was. He said, I feel like after service, I want to be able to practice as much as I can because I don't have any other opportunities. That's where his mind was. That's not where I thought his mind was. And so, whereas at home, I don't ask a whole bunch of questions. I just go off. When it's time to go off, or like I said, I do a whole lot of joking around. It's either one or the other. But as a pastor, I think that asking questions and really trying to get an understanding and not making people feel like you don't want them there, and really trying to see people's heart on different things, I believe is where home differs from the church,
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think, and even on what you were saying, it's just it's super important to be able to have a conversation like that and be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It's like, yo, okay, well, my bad. You know what? Because like kids get older and like what I mean, you don't know. Like
Yeah.
um, and so let me ask you, how has how is your wife uh influenced, or like how has she helped to be able to strengthen your walk with the Lord?
So one thing about my wife, people see her and might think that she's, quiet or soft spoken, but she will she will tell you about yourself. And so if she doesn't feel like I'm, or she feels like I've, fallen a little bit too far away, you
Mhm,
know, she feels like, maybe I've become a bit distant with things. She's going to tell me, you know, and so, and at the end of the day, I don't ever do things to please anybody. I want what I do, for the Lord to please the Lord. And so, like I told you, when she tells me stuff, I think about it
mhm,
because now she's comfortable telling me things, even when she's uncomfortable telling me things. You know, she'll tell me. So I'll think about it and I'm like, okay, what what can I do differently? Like how can I change this around? And so, she's and then she's full of ideas, and I just I wish I would um uh take her ideas more seriously at the time when she's telling, sometimes I'm like, well, not right now, but
mm,
she really has very good ideas. I know this isn't necessarily part of the question, but I just had to say that, she's 9 times out of 10, like when she's saying something to me, she's on target. And so that's why it causes me, um, it causes me to think about it. Side note, don't ever tell your wives that, she's always right when she says something. Cause you you can't take it back once you said it, you know. But I thank the Lord for my wife because, for the most part, like she says something, she's right about it. I'm just telling the truth,
yeah.
And
Well,
so yeah.
listen, well, you have to worry about me telling my wife that, that she's right all the time because I'm not married. Praise God. So I thought I could get through with a straight face. I couldn't do it. Oh, God has been good to me. All right. And I'm not taking this out. So, but, oh man, a shout out to my sister in love, Jennifer.
Yes.
Let's. How is your? You know what? I'm gonna ask you about adjutancy real quick.
Okay.
Many like a lot of people see like leadership and they see it as visibility.
Mm-hmm.
But adjutancy is about support. So like how how has um adjutancy um helped to shape your character?
So going through the trainings and learning the different things, learning how an adjutant should act, how adjutants should carry themselves, you know, shouldn't be super flashy
Mhm,
with the way that we dress, at least while we're serving,
mhm,
you know,
mhm,
um, you know, we're supposed to serve in quiet dignity. And so if you're in the service, everybody shouldn't know that you're there. You know, they might see you, but like at the end of the day, it's not about you. And I
mhm,
think that too many times, armor bearers and adjutants, they try to make it about themselves
mhm,
when it's actually about the one that they're serving. Um, for years, I was our father's armor bearer. I was one of his armor bearers, and and I promise you, I do not say this to brag, or I don't say this to step on any toes. But when I served him, once he said you're one of my armor bearers, I did not park in his spot. I was at 1060 Worcester Street and here at 336 Springfield Street. Still, I will not park in his spot. It didn't matter to me if he was in Memphis or California. If it was his spot, it was his spot, and I didn't park there. And that's just how it is, you
mhm,
know. And like literally, I respect the office. You know, I'm not gonna go into another pastor's church and sit in that pastor's seat if that pastor didn't invite me to sit in the seat. I'm not gonna go to another another pastor's church, and just walk myself up to the pulpit, because that's
yeah,
not what we do.
yeah,
And so, I believe that the adjutancy has has really kind of reshaped my thought on how I ought to carry myself.
mm,
I believe it's perfected and is continuing to sharpen, my mind concerning leadership. You know, although I am in leadership, I still consider myself under leadership. And so I'm going to continue to do things as if I'm an armor bearer. You know,
yeah,
if I go to a church and my father's there and his armor bearer is not, I'm going to act as if I'm his armor bearer, you know,
yeah,
because I still respect the office. I'm going to take his iPad, I'm going to see if he has some water, because at the end of the day, not just an armor bearer, he my daddy, know,
yeah, yeah,
and
for sure.
Chris is his organist, and then you do other stuff, you know.
For sure.
But you have other roles, and especially with work, and so maybe that will prohibit you from being at certain places where I'm already going to be. And so, I think that I believe that if you have that desire to serve, you know, I believe that you should have training, and I think that a lot of the problem is a lot of people, they don't want to serve, they want to be served, and that's all right, you know. If you want to be out front, being an adjutant is not for you. You know, like we shouldn't be just getting the pastor water um, when he gets up to speak. Should be done ahead of time. But also, you should know what your leader wants. Our Father, he don't drink the water.
Mm-hmm.
He'll drink water before or he'll drink it after.
Right.
He won't drink it while he's preaching, you know? So, and I also know he likes water while he's in his office. How do I know this? Because while I was his armor bearer, I started putting water on his desk.
Yeah.
Nobody was around. He just started noticing water was there.
Yeah. And I mean, it's important. And on top of that, I mean, it, to be able to pray and to cover someone else in prayer as they're doing what the Lord has given them to do. I in my mind I always think about it like Batman and Robin fighting back to back.
Definitely.
Again, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like, cause so like, you want to know that, cause I can imagine, like there will be a lot of times where, it can feel like you're by yourself
Hmm.
and you're preaching and you're trying to, even if you're going other places and you're trying to get the word across and you know what I mean? Like you want to feel like, like somebody is fighting with you. We
Yeah.
know that the Lord is there.
Yeah.
So you know what I'm saying? I would love for your prayers as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, I think this is so important. And like you said, it's it's changed your perspective, but it feels like is giving you a different type of humility,
Yeah.
to not feel like, I have to be, everybody has to see me do this.
Yeah.
I think it's difficult for some people to do, especially for when people want to do certain things in church. A lot of
Hmm.
times they would feel like, the just being a pastor is a glamorous job. To
Whew.
be in the armor bearer is, you know what I'm saying? Because you
Hmm.
because you get to be the guy next to the guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but it's not all about that. And so, you know what I mean? Like, yo, it's super commendable. I see, like, even, like the work that you're doing jurisdictionally. It's not, you know what I'm saying? Like, yo, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, on top of the things that you're dealing with, it's like, oh, here, look, another responsibility. um, but I got just a couple, and I'll get you out of here.
Okay.
Um, if you could speak to somebody who was who is where you were before you reached your turning point with the Lord, what would you say to them?
Um, I guess I would say just keep holding on, because um, a lot of times we feel like we're the only ones that are dealing with what we're dealing with. But we overcome by the words of our testimonies. And so um, you know, I remember when I was in sin, I didn't want nobody telling me that the Lord can deliver me from smoking
Mm,
if they hadn't been delivered from smoking.
mm,
I remember one preacher came to town and he said, I'll tell you how to stop smoking. Don't buy none, don't ask for none, um, don't accept none. He said one other one. And that's easier said than done in my mind,
yeah.
but I'm gonna tell you the way to make sure, the way to be able to stop smoking, don't buy none, don't ask for none, don't accept none. Because like at the end of the day, that's it's really that easy. But like you have to have the made up mind. So like literally I would say just keep holding on because, it gets it gets easier, you know, and take it one day at a time when you receive salvation. Take it one day at a time. Don't look at me where I am right now, you know. I literally got to where I am today by taking it one day at a time. Some days were harder than others. I told you my testimony about how, the man that pulled up beside me. What I didn't say is that same day we were having something at Deliverance. But also my friends were having they were doing a bonfire. You know how they do back in the day. And so they were going to be drinking there and they was going to be smoking there. And so I told them I wouldn't go. And I went to church instead. And so, like, when you have a desire to do right, then you're gonna do right. You know, it's don't be around your friends that are doing the stuff that you're trying to get free from.
Yeah.
You know, get around the saints. You know, get around some church people, and and get around the right church people.
Yeah, right. That part.
You know, because sometimes there's some church people out there that are just as bad as the people in the world. You know, but get around the right church people. You know the people that that ain't doing right.
Yeah.
When I worked in the lockup, they told us, they said, the kids there, you got to be real with them because they gonna know if you real or not. And them kids, they respected me because I didn't change. When everything was good, we was cool. But when they did wrong, I held them accountable.
Yeah.
And so you need to make sure that you're doing right. Make sure you're getting around the people that are going to help you to become who you're supposed to become. Pastor Clark said this to me. He told me, he said, and this is years ago, he said, if the people around you don't stimulate or change your way of thinking, then it's time for you to change your circle.
Mm.
If your circle, the people around you, encourage you to keep on staying where you're at or to get worse, then it's time for you to get a new circle. It's time for you to get around some people that will speak life into you, some people that will help you to become the person that you're trying to be.
Yeah. Yo, that's bars. Man, shout out Pastor Clark, man. Like,
Yeah, Pastor Clark.
um, but yeah, man, I think like all of that is very important, man. And I didn't know that there was a church service that same night. But
It was.
but again, that just goes back into what we were talking about is like, is doing, like doing the work. I think sometimes when we get, like, oh, well, God didn't deliver me. He didn't. It's like, you can't put yourself in a situation and be like, okay, well, if I don't want to do it, then I'm delivered. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, well, if you had gone to the bonfire that night, chances are, like, like there would have been a higher probability of you going back to some of that stuff
Yeah.
because you put yourself in a situation where you're around it.
Yes.
And even like, getting, it's not easy um to form godly friendships all the time because sometimes it can take a while to be able to find your people.
Yeah.
Um, it's um, and that's, but I think that we have to get comfortable. If even if like if I can't hang out with my friends that I used to have, I don't, I don't want to alienate them, but I'm not going to do all of that same stuff. So if you're going to do that, like I can't rock with you there. So now, if that means I got to be by myself for a season, mostly, then that's what that means. And that's not something that I want to do. It's not something I always wanted to do,
Yeah.
but it's like if is necessary, if this is if my relationship with God is the most important relationship in my life, like, this is a sacrifice I'm willing to make in this season. I would love to be able to be around other people that love the Lord. So,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But sometimes, sometimes y'all both love the Lord, but it's hard to find people sometimes that your personalities click.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
it's like, so that we both saved, but we're unequally yoked. So, you know what I mean? I might
Yep.
not be able to be with you for an extended period of time. Like,
Yep.
you know what I'm saying? Like, and so it's difficult, but again, difficult is not impossible.
That's
Like,
right.
we say that the Lord is one that does impossible things, and we can leave the hard stuff to him
Yeah.
and think that, and believe and trust and know that he's gonna be able to do it. So,
Yeah.
I'll get you out on this one. If your life, we've talked about so much, but if your life had a message or a lesson attached to it, um that others could learn from, what would that be? What would that message or that lesson be?
Can you ask one more time?
If your life had a message or a lesson attached to it, like what would it be?
It's a good one. Got to think about that one. If my life had a message, listen to your parents. You know, my my parents, they talked about how, you know, um if we were to do certain things, we were going to get stuck. We're going to get caught up in them, you know, and they really tried to raise us up in the church and told us about how much we needed Jesus and how much we needed to be saved. But, you know, I was just determined that I was going to do things my way. You know, I was going to live the life that I wanted to live. And so I got caught up into some things, you know, and at times ended up in some places that I probably would not have if I would have just lived the life that my parents, um, um, that the life that they presented, you know, the life that they lived in front of me. Um, but you know, I do believe everything that I did made me who I am today.
Mm.
I do believe that. However, um, I do also believe that I more than likely would have been better today than I am had I listened to my parents. You know, there are struggles, addictions, hard times that I would not have had to deal with had I taken the advice of my parents. And so, to that one that, you know, is not as far on as far along in age as me, you know, I'll definitely say, um, I'll listen to your parents, especially when their message is good. You know, especially when they're really trying to speak life into you. It's not a personal dig at you. You know, it's not a ploy to get you to stay down. You know, they're really trying to um, see you be better. You know, I believe that 90% of parents, you know, and I say 90% because I don't know what the actual percentage is, but they want to see their parents, they want to see their kids do better than they did.
Mhm.
You know, I want my sons, my daughter to be better than I am now, and better than I could ever become. I want to see them. I want to see them be all right. You know, and so um, you know, just listen to your parents. You know, and that's as simple as I can put it. You know.
Man, let's listen to your godly parents.
Yes, there you go.
Some of y'all just, I don't know, some of y'all be doing out there, but no, you know, it's crazy. It's crazy. Even during the interview, y'all go back to um our first episode that I interviewed our father, and look at the mannerisms between the both of them, in the way that they say things. It's uncanny. It's like talking to a younger version of dad. Yeah. But man, I appreciate you, man. I thank you for coming on and being able to share with us. And I know there's so many people that will be able to glean from your experiences and everything that you've been through. Thank you for being transparent. Um, and so this has been See-Thru. We thank you for watching. Please also like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any prayer requests, drop them in the comments. And Pastor Bayman and co-pastor Bayman are going to pray for you. But,
Definitely.
we want just for you to be able to get what it is that you can out of every interview. And so make sure to run it back. Like I said, like, share, and subscribe. And we thank you again
Thank you.
for being a part. This has been See-Thru. I'm AJ. We out.